talk a little bit about Coach Prime and his health, which he does not want to address publicly. I think Rick George got as close to it as anybody. But there was a column written by Pat Rooney at Buff Zone, right? 3 points column, which I think is a little edgy. It's a little edgy. So I'm going to give Pat his full 2 paragraphs here because I think it's important that he gets context before we start asking these questions that I'm about to ask, right? So what he wrote was Coach Sanders didn't discuss his ongoing health issues during Big 12 media days earlier this month. Understandable. But the questions aren't going away just because Sanders wants them to. Whether Sanders discusses his extended spring-summer absence from campus when the Buffs open preseason workouts on July 28th remains to be seen. But at the outset of this third season at CU, he already endured a litany of serious medical matters. In 2021, Sanders had a pair of toes amputated. In the summer of 2023, ahead of his first season with the Buffs, Sanders had 2 surgeries to address blood clots in his legs. We know about the surgeries because he told us. Okay? We don't know about any of the other medical history because he ain't told us. I'd also add in here, find me an old football player who has not had major surgeries after the age of 40. Go ahead. Find them. Find me guys that don't have knee replacements, hip replacements. Find me guys that don't have arthritic hands. Find me guys that still run out the tunnel or can be trusted to run out the tunnel or don't waddle when they walk, right? One of my best friends is former offensive lineman in the NFL, Jerry Ostrowski. Jerry does a podcast about the Bills that you should go check out. Jerry is one of my favorite people and quite frankly made room for me to get my solo sports talk show host locally. Like looked up at the program director and the owner of the radio station and said, hey, I'm going to go do something else, but RJ needs to get this spot. And I say this to say this part. Jerry needs to move around before he moves around, okay? But he would not trade any bit of his football career to get back anything that he has lost or perceived to have lost because Jerry lives a pretty cool life. I mean, his boys also played football. His boy Owen just got done playing at TU. He's going to finish his career at Northern Iowa where his big brother Jackson is a coach. It's living your best life. All while Jerry is also, a former All-American and got to play in Atlanta and Buffalo, loves Buffalo. And we'll talk my ear off about the state of Pennsylvania's football programs and teams, from the Philly Eagles to Penn State. And then every now and again, TU football comes up. I tend to believe, especially as I run into older football players that are much larger than I am, you're going to have these problems. You're going to have these physical ailments. It's going to suck. And I think maybe there's a part of Prime that has believed that anything he says about himself or anybody else is likely to end up getting talked about. Turns out if he doesn't talk about it, that's going to continue to happen too. And we know that he has had, relationships with media that, he just doesn't trust some, and others he trusts quite a bit. Others he'll cite. But anytime something like this happens, I wonder how he will choose to address this, because it is one thing for people to speculate on what his health is. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. I'm just going to say, hey, Bucky was the first person to raise an alarm for me. And since then, Prime looks good. He was at Big 12 Media Days. He met all his commitments there, and he did a really good job advocating for the coaches and his idea of a salary cap. That he doesn't need to be around when it ain't time to be around doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. That's why you've got assistants. That's why you've got assistants, help with these matters. Why you got gym managers, why you got secretary, so forth, so that people can handle these things when it ain't your turn to handle these things. Because frankly, it's about winning football games. I don't think he needs to address his health. You know why I know this? Nick Saban had hip surgery. And almost as soon as the next damn day it felt, he playing golf. It happens. Why don't we talk about Bill Belichick's age? Why Why don't we talk about these 70-plus-year-old coaches' age? Because they're not revealing to us their physical limitations. I mean, some of these are just seen. You're not going to ask Bill Belichick to run no 3 miles, run no 40-yard dash. Why is it important to us that Prime demonstrates that he is virile and healthy? Because it is important to so many that Prime demonstrates that he's supposed to be here. I still think that there are so many people that are not just upset with Prime being Prime. They're upset that he got here without having to pay dues, right? Perceived to pay dues. Get out of here, man. The dude is the youngest among the coaches in the Big 12 and as far as coaching career, right? Like Kenny Dillingham comes close, but Kenny Dillingham had been an assistant, quality control assistant, so forth, so on. But when it was time to ask someone to step up and say how we feel, Kyle Whittingham wasn't the guy that people looked at. Willie Fritz wasn't the guy that people looked at. Rich Rodriguez wasn't the guy that people looked at. They looked at Deion Sanders, who got started coaching college football in 2020. Had that 1 year to get on a good foot, go 4-3, and all of a sudden they win 12 games. Come again, they win 12 games. Damn, he gets to Colorado. Well, this big boy football, they go 4-8. Did you realize they went 2-10 the year before? Never mind. They went 9-4 after that. And now we're going into a summer where we expect Colorado to keep doing Colorado stuff, which is to say they don't necessarily think the end-all be-all is win the Big 12 conference. It will happen. It will help, right? Because everybody in that league is probably going to catch 2 losses. What they want is to make the college football playoff, but it is difficult to do that, catch 2 losses in the Big 12. That's where I want the conversation to be. I want the conversation to be about a Georgia Tech team that shouldn't nobody want to play, that they got to play, and how the atmosphere will feel when they play that game. But I don't think that pointing out that Prime has not spoken publicly about his health is any way to get him to talk about it. And honestly, as long as he's coaching football, I tend to think he's healthy. Until such a time as he says he's not, or we get evidence to the contrary, just leave it the hell alone. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Adapt and Respond. If you like the show, subscribe to it on YouTube, rate it, and subscribe to it on Apple and Spotify if you're listening on the audio podcast. And we will see y'all next time. We about to be really up and running and really going with this thing. It's about to get really cool.